Hey everybody, welcome to another Microsoft Unbox pod. This is episode 98, I believe.
98, yes, sir. We are
There we
two
go.
away from 3 digits, buddy.
Yes, we're getting close. A couple of weeks and we'll have our big 100th episode. I don't know what we're going to do, special or differently, but it will be something different. I'm your host today, Kareem Anderson. I'm joined by
David Allen. Hope everybody's doing well. And as always, we are 98 episodes older, so be patient with us. We might be slowing down a little bit.
I am actually sore. I went to the gym, I did legs, and I am going to be seated for the rest of this week, maybe weekend.
Well, I kind of feel you. I was out yesterday and did some exercises this morning or yesterday. I haven't done anything yet today. And when I got up this morning, my back reminded me of my age.
Yes, the body will quickly remind you the older you get, don't do that. Stop it. Just stop it. With that being said, let's get you guys into some news. Microsoft had another quiet week. We're waiting for them to probably go extra crazy, closer to build this year. So maybe they're just holding back on some, Windows, Azure.
Isn't that next week?
No, I'm just saying they're probably holding. Is it?
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't build next week?
You might be right. And
I'll tell you what, while you're talking, I'll ask Copilot when build is. See, we'll do this the Microsoft
you might
way.
or might not get a good answer. So you might want to research that again. Bounce it off of Claude, then bounce it off of Gemini, and then you triangulate an answer. Nevertheless, they were relatively quiet, but we do have news. Some of the headlines we'll be talking about today are Intel is bringing a new ArcGPU to handhelds. I guess they want a little piece of this handheld. They want a bigger portion of this handheld. I guess maybe they don't want NVIDIA partnering with them on any of these handhelds. They just want to take the whole pie for themselves. We'll get over those details. We'll go over those details in that story a little bit. We're also going to be talking about YouTube utilizing AI even more, parts of the Gemini LLM to bring you content that you really want, less of the Ben Shapiro's and more of the random football hits gathered from the NFL if you want a montage of that. We'll also be talking about Samsung is ending its OneDrive prompted integration come September, what that means for both parties, Samsung and Microsoft, because Microsoft got presumably a boost from that. And this was a deal that started back in 2019. This is just the end of their contract, and it looks like they're not getting renewed for another 5 years or so. We'll be talking about Qualcomm's new Snapdragon C chip, which was well received, and what that means for Windows PCs competing with the MacBook Neo in the coming months. Lastly, we'll be talking about our free play days and what you guys will be going into the weekend playing. With that being said, let's get a confirmation before we get into our rants. When is our dates for build?
Build, we're slowing down, buddy. Like we said at the beginning of the pod. Build starts next Monday and Tuesday. It's June 2nd and June 3rd, 2026. It's held in San Francisco and online. So we are definitely just a smidge behind on this Friday afternoon.
Well, that explains the news vacuum that we are currently in when it comes to Microsoft news. So we will probably have a lot to talk about next week. A lot to read about, so please visit the site if you can. Maybe we'll do some shorts to kind of go over some of the news of the day that, we couldn't wait to the end of the week to podcast about. Now we're going to jump into our rant. What are you upset about tech-wise for the week?
I am upset with Microsoft Windows and USB-C. This is not
just a fair note for everybody listening. This may be the third week in a row that David has been upset about Windows. I think it's indicative of the rhetoric that we've been hearing about Microsoft needing to fix Windows. If we got a devout Windows user, someone who likes to use Windows, previously loved to use Windows, is now 3 weeks in a row complaining about Windows, you get yourself a problem, Microsoft.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a Microsoft problem, and I was kind of able to verify it. So just to give you a quick rundown, I use a racing simulator for sim racing once in a while, and there's a lot of USB-C connections on that simulator. And for years, you sit down, turn it on, hardware does what it's supposed to do, you race. Amazing. Well, this week, obviously there was a Microsoft update. I saw the update, ran the update, just like everybody else. Did the reboot. Since then, you go to race, you sit down, your devices may or may not be detected. You have to reach around, unplug them all, plug them all back in one by one, wait for Microsoft to decide, oh, he plugged his stuff back in. We better detect that and use it. Then you get to go race. Now, why is this a pain in the butt? Because most people that have simulators have desktops. Desktops have limited USB-C ports for whatever reason anyway. I've never figured out why we only get one USB-C port on a lot of desktops when you get 2 or 3 or more on today's laptops. We get one if you're lucky on that desktop. And if you notice when you shop for gaming desktops, if you need a USB-C port, you better make sure there's one on there because not all of them have one. So when you plug in your racing simulator, a lot of people, mine's a little different, but a lot of people are plugging in pedals, they're plugging in the steering wheel, they're plugging in a microphone, they're plugging in a headset. If they're streaming, they're plugging in a camera, they're plugging in the Stream Deck. You get the idea. So a lot of folks have a USB-C hub on the back or whatnot. So you have to reach all the way around the back of your computer, unplug it, give it a minute, then plug it back in, then go sit down and make sure it detects all your devices. Now, here's the thing. I have multiple machines. The one that got the update has the issue. The ones that didn't get the update work like they're supposed to. You just sit down, simulator launches, and you race. So that kind of eliminates there being a hardware issue or a driver issue and puts it straight in Redmond, Washington as where the problem is located. I would appreciate it, one, if they fix the issue sometime within this 2026 calendar year. I prefer that it not be fixed in 2030 when Windows 12 finally makes its debut or whatever. But yes, I'm a little agitated, as you can tell. I'm a little irritated because you're supposed to make these updates, Windows or Microsoft, to make Windows better. You're not supposed to be taking features away in this sense. I got a feeling from reading some forums that I'm not the only one experiencing this issue. So to your point, where is the Windows quality control? Where is the Windows testing team that says, oh, darn, we blew up USB-C for some devices. We should go fix that. And I just don't understand it. How many years has Microsoft been releasing Windows? 30, 35, 40?
40.
Come on. I mean, that's almost as bad as the phone link issue I've talked about last week. But, this is worse. Come on, at least test your updates before you send them out.
Yeah, this is hopefully maybe the last vestige of the old guard that didn't do testing. And maybe in a couple of weeks, we'll start seeing more and more reliability because of what they say they want to do with Windows. I can't vouch for that, but we'll keep an eye on it and Dave will keep complaining about it until everything gets fixed in Windows. Mine's going to be real short. It's battery technology. I feel like we need to figure out a way to have more abundant ways to charge things now that more things are using battery. I feel like, there's the two options that we have, which is at least for phones, which is corded or through, inductive charging through, plates and stuff. I know IKEA is building more furniture with it, but I feel like there needs to be more forward thinking about how to charge things and things that don't rely on connectors or cables that can then be replaced. Because you and I'm saying all this, maybe I'm scatterbrained right now, but the idea is that, remember when we moved from USB-A to USB-C charging things and you had to scramble to find a bunch of cords that had that connector, and then there was a time and place where there was a USB-A end, but a USB-C end on the female and a male A port on the end. So then you had to look through all your cables and make sure you either had a USB-C to USB-C, USB-A to USB-C to charge things. And I'm saying that now that more things are becoming battery powered and operated through rechargeable means, which is good, great for the environment. We are now seeing people having to use 4 and 5 of these corded things to charge things all at once. And for me, I was out last weekend cutting the grass, things like that. And I have a lot of battery powered tools. Lawnmowers, battery powered, hedge trimmers, battery powered, the weed whackers, battery powered. Like most things are battery powered. And I have to use this one strip in order to power all those things. And so I have to kind of, partition my time on how I charge things. I'm just saying there needs to be, maybe figure out ways to do inductive charging for larger batteries so we can just put things on stuff and let them, charge until we need them. Remove the idea of cables everywhere and having to centralize all your charging into one area. You might be at home with your spouse and she's charging her phone and her computer and you need to charge your phone, but all the, and then maybe your kids are charging their iPads at the same time. And now that's like, all right, well, I have to wait till one of us is done charging because we haven't thought beyond corded charging for the most part for most things. Maybe build into the bottom of a laptop inductive charging so that you could put it down somewhere, put it on the table as you're working and having it charged so that you don't need to use the cable in the living rooms where all the cabled ports for charging are at. Same thing for battery technology for bigger things in the garage, So that's my rant is just, I hope we can expand our idea of how to charge things as more things become battery powered.
Why don't we just, USB-C is getting to the point where you can push a lot of wattage through it, or as you said, you can push little wattage through it. Why don't we just get to the point where we adopt a charging solution that is USB-C? That way, everybody in the household. I mean, I've used a Mac charger to charge a phone before in a pinch. Worked just fine. Vice versa. So, you got a good point. Why don't we just standardize what charging is and your lawnmower batteries, your weed eater batteries, and, your robot lawnmower is all charged the same way.
That would be great. Enough complaining. Let's start talking about some news. We'll start with Intel. This was a story that you brought up. Let's get into Intel's ArcG series and what that means for handhelds.
This is very interesting here. I had heard rumors of this, that Intel was going to enter this space, and you and I had talked about the need for Intel to enter this space, but the announcement kind of just got dropped out yesterday. Intel is officially raising the bar and giving AMD a bit more competition in the handheld PC space. They're doing this by introducing the ArcG series family of processors that they say are purposely built for these Windows 11 handhelds. Starting with the ArcG3 and the ArcG3 Extreme lineup that brings Panther Lake alongside a more powerful and efficient Xe3 graphics engine for smoother gameplay and battery life. For a better experience, of course, on the go. With that being said, the question became, who's going to adopt this? Because, Microsoft right now is using AMD. Lenovo is using AMD. Of course, this could always change. But in the coming months, starting as early as June, you could see the Acer Predator, Atlas 8, or the MSI Claw 8EX AI, and of course the One X player. The quote from the president of Intel was, Intel ArcG series represents years of deep focus, innovation, and a deep commitment to the gaming it delivers. Uncompromising PC performance in the palm of your hand, combined with the console-like accessibility and immediacy of gamers expect. With cutting-edge graphics and technologies like XeSS3 and breakthrough efficiency for longer unplugged play, Intel ArcG series provides that while others make trade-offs interesting, This way, gamers don't have to. And I'm sorry I said that wrong. That was from Dan Rogers, Vice President and General Manager of the PC Product and Client Computing Group. Interesting that supposedly, and I say that carefully, supposedly AMD is going to get some competition. Now, the question is going to be, what does AMD do in the next week or two or the next month? Do they say, oh, here's the Z3 and the Z3 Extreme? Come get it, boys. Because you were behind. You've been behind. You've not been in this gaming space for the last 2 or 3 years, heavily. We're not going to let you jump in now, but I'm going to be positive here. If what Intel is saying is true when it hits the palm of your hand, that's the key. Anybody can write a spec sheet. And Intel doesn't have the best track record in this space. If you can put it in the gamer's hands, all of the games work, and you've got a little battery life there to play with, and there's not a performance sacrifice in any way, as mentioned here by Mr. Dan Rogers, Vice President and General Manager, if there's no gotchas, no get-ups, no tweaks, twerks, or anything of that stuff to get it to work, I would like to see Intel enter this space, because guess what? Competition is always better for who? Me and you, the consumer. It gives us choices. It gives, maybe in this climate we're in, a cheaper device with equal performance, a cheaper device with equal performance and an extra feature or two. You take $50 off a device right now, it matters. Steam Deck went up $200 this week on their handheld. So you take, the current pricing, assuming that's where these would enter, you knock $50 off of it, or $75, and say this one's powered by Intel. And it matches the AMD performance, even if it's a little less. If it's still livable, it's cheaper. People will buy it. So I hope this turns out well for them.
I do too. I never want to see, fewer options, let's put it that way. But I do have my reservations about Intel. With that being said, we move on to the next story, which is sandwiching Intel in another way. They're getting pressure from all angles. This is going to be a tough couple of years for Intel. Qualcomm Snapdragon C was announced this week. And this is their new updated lower end. Remember, they had the Snapdragon X Elite, then they had the Plus, I believe, which was the mid-range, if not lower end chips. Well, now they have Snapdragon C, which is designed specifically to address low-powered, low-cost devices. They don't have a ton of specs on it just yet. It was just announced. But the things that it targets so far are price, performance, battery life, and thermals and acoustics. And it also has some, NPUs for all of the AI that no one's ever going to use. But in their briefing, they mentioned several times about why the C was being designed, and without explicitly saying it, it's just to take on the MacBook Neo. I believe that you said you heard, or at least listened to Paul Thurrott, and he had an explanation about the timing on this. Now, when I first wrote about this, when it was first announced, I was like, hey, seems a little bit late, a little bit like, the PC market was caught off guard by the MacBook Neo, because if you're announcing the chip today, it's gonna be at least a month or two before a device with it is on the shelf. And, their initial release said that they would have devices on the shelves this fall, which means that anybody that's going to college this summer has already bought their MacBook Neo, and you've lost that potential customer for who knows how long. Maybe they graduate college and their boss is like, hey, we use Windows PCs here. You might get them back because of forced, because of job performance, things like that. But to wait till the fall seemed a little bit odd. But you have heard otherwise.
Well, I usually watch, I'm gonna give Paul credit. Paul does, Paul has been doing this 30 years. And he's usually on top of a lot of things. Sometimes he has his own personal opinions that get interjected in. But I was watching one of his podcasts this week when this was released, and he mentioned that he thought this was a wonderful thing that Qualcomm decided to just, as you mentioned, we were caught off guard by the MacBook Neo, that Qualcomm just decided to jump on it, just decided to get in there, get it done, put out a competitor. Don't announce it now and release it in the fall when it doesn't matter, or to your point, it would matter less to a college student. We're expecting devices to be in hand or on shelf in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So if they can do that, they're out there, they're competing with the MacBook Neo. They might get some of those college sales, of parents that, are buying in July and August for their kids to go back to school. And, these are supposed to be $300 and up laptops, I believe. I don't know what a $300 laptop's going to get you, but these are supposed to be $300 and up. So maybe when we're shopping, you've got the MacBook Neo on one side and maybe something by Lenovo, Acer, or Asus that is powered by the Snapdragon C chip sitting on the other side, and you've got a $50, $75 price difference there to think about. Or think about, well, what do we use at home, or what does your school require? So I think this is a good move by Snapdragon. They just went ahead and went after it. They didn't waste their time with PR or marketing. Here's a chip. We're going to put it in devices. It's going to compete with the MacBook Neo. You'll see these devices in a few weeks. The end. I love it. This is what competition should be. We're at the point where when you talk about something, I feel like you need to release it fairly quickly, like Snapdragon's doing, instead of waiting 6 months, because by the time you get to that 6 months, you've forgotten about it, or you no longer need it. So way to go, Snapdragon. I hope these go well. I can't wait to see a device with one in it just to see what it's capable of.
Yeah, as indicative of the MacBook Neo, it wasn't like they said, oh, we have a Neo and it's coming out in the fall. They said, no, here's the Neo and you can get it in a week or two. Yep. Maybe I think it was 2 weeks or so, something short like that. The idea is that, you capitalize on the buzz. And by then you've already had someone who is now financially sunk and invested in it, even if the product isn't the best. If you bought it and it's already been 2 weeks into using it, it's the chances of you taking it back to get your money or do all that rigmarole goes down. The idea of announcing something, getting someone excited, and then giving them 6 months to look at a bunch of other options doesn't seem very smart. The other thing we should note is that there are two things that are going against Qualcomm at the moment, and that is the manufacturer, because again, aside from the performance, which I'm assuming they deliver, we'll just take them at their word. Maybe, this isn't Intel. They've at least proven with the X Elite chip so far that they can do pretty well. The OEMs, depending on what they need to cut, because again, Windows and the chips are the biggest cost for manufacturers, and they make up for it on the ends of the hardware. So again, this is where you get stuff that like lit keyboards taken out. You get, diving trackpads instead of the haptic ones. You get plastic on, maybe not all sides of the device, but enough sides of the device to make it worth, manufacturing at scale. So Qualcomm has the manufacturer who needs to make a better product, something that it would be on par with their, higher end stuff that uses maybe, you may not need OLED, but you do need a quality LCD. You need better speakers. You need a better keyboard style deck that you have. The bigger thing above anything is what I wrote: Windows. Yes, the new chip is out, but Windows isn't the new experience. This isn't, a lot of people are leaving Windows, not necessarily for the hardware. OEMs are knocking out of the park with a lot of the devices. They offer, par for par, they offer more ports. They offer, better screens. The weight ratios are, like LG Gram, for example, are great. It isn't necessarily the hardware that people are having an issue with. It is battery life and Windows. And Windows is in a rough state right now. So I'm glad for Snapdragon. I hope that Windows can get their act together to help them out, because the better Windows performs, the less likely people are going to say, hey, I'm glad that this thing goes all day, but it goes all day and it annoys me. That's not a winning combination. We're going to move on to our next story, which is YouTube. wants to show us stuff. What do they want to show us?
Yeah, this also made me scratch my head because we have bumped around this a few times on a few pods recently. Guess what, folks? We have this thing called AI generated content. Anybody heard anything about it?
What?
We've got all this AI generated content out there, and the folks up at the YouTubers have finally figured out that guess what? People are posting AI generated content and not telling anybody about it. Now, back in 2023, you had the option to disclose whether you were using AI in your content or not. Now, I'm sure if you're monetized, doesn't matter what you put up there, you're not going to say you're using AI because you want people to believe you're not, and you want to get monetized. So as a result, YouTube has rolled out a censoring system to detect whether you're using AI content or not. This is a major leap from where we've been. It's not a voluntary system. This is what they're doing. They have offered no details necessarily as to how it will all function, except that it will detect if your video or content has C2PA data confirming AI was used to make the content. And of course, if you use Google's AI tools, it's automatically flagged. So, with that being said, they kind of give an idea of only if a certain percentage of the video is AI, or if, a certain percentage of the people in the video are AI generated, it may get flagged. They do say creators can dispute incorrect flags, but not in all cases. As I said, such, permanent flags are there when the C2PA data says you have used AI or you have used a known AI engine, such as the Google engines, that can be detected. These automatic labels will be very prominent in the video. They will be prominent in the description of the video that AI was used. Now, why are we doing this? I go back to Taylor Swift, the deep fakes and the inappropriate content. Right when AI was becoming a thing, they're called deep fakes. People were faking content and putting people in uncomfortable positions. So this is a kickback of having AI do things for you. It's going to start having some type of scanning, some type of detection, some type of regulation. So it makes me think, do we really get to keep all of these AI video generators, all these image generators, if they're going to be flagged by such platforms as YouTube? Because what's going to happen here, folks, is the next thing you're going to hear is video demonetized. Why? Used AI. TikTok demonetized. Why? You used AI. So I suspect if this works, this will become a industry standard in some way, and each platform will handle it in their own way. So might not be good for those that are typing prompts to generate videos or whatnot to post on the old YouTubers and social media platforms.
Yeah. I wonder how stringent what do you call it? C2, what is it?
C2PA.
Cover, how stringent its requirements are, what it covers, because I know there are a ton of people, and upfront immediately, we've used AI for some of our thumbnails. What they flag is that, because I also, when I was doing, and I've gone back to since, because the YouTube thumbnail AI stuff all looks the same, so I didn't like that. So going back to creating my own thumbnails, I do use, I think it's Canva's, what they list as AI, but it's basically image resolution that sharpens an image. That would be considered AI, I suppose. So would they, in using it to clear up images that, maybe a bit at that were, 700 by, 600 pixel quality, moving and boosting it to 1080p so it looks better on the thumbnail. Would they consider that AI? And now is our video now labeled AI? even though it was only used in the creation or clearing up the resolution of the image. I'm not sure.
From my reading, because I did go and read a little bit into this when it first came out this week. From my reading, no, stuff like that is okay. Now, for example, if you and I are sitting here talking, like we are having the pod, if you were an AI generated person or I was an AI generated person and we're sitting here having this conversation, then that gets flagged. And they also mentioned that fake events in real scenarios, like, for example, people that are AI generated in the Grand Canyon. Well, that doesn't make sense. That stuff may be flagged. I don't feel like it's going to be too strict, but we don't know yet. We're going to wait and see, who starts yelling first, what content creator is out there, throwing up hours of AI and not telling anybody. So we'll know by who yells first, how stringent it is. But I think it's just a detection of, things in your video. I don't think it's going to impact thumbnails and things like that, but I could be wrong.
We're going to find out, ladies and gentlemen. We try not to use AI as often as we can, but there are some things it is useful for. Nevertheless, we're moving on to our next story, which is Samsung ending its OneDrive integration. You and I quickly talked off mic about this before we started the pod, but the story and the details for our listeners is that come September 30th of this year, 2026, the OneDrive photo backup support that came pre-installed and prompted users when you started your journey on your new Samsung device, saying, hey, would you like to connect your photos to this thing? Here's an easy way to do it. Will no longer be in place. This was a partnership that grew out of 2019. I believe it was only for 5 years, if I remember when we wrote it back then, i.e. We're coming to, or maybe it's longer than that, because we're coming to the end of, I think, of a deal, not necessarily Samsung saying, get the hell out of here, Microsoft. It's more like, it was nice working with you. We're going to go our own separate ways. The photos will remain safe in OneDrive, so the things that you have stored will still be there. You will need to reconfigure backups starting September 30th, meaning that you will need to now manually go in and say, hey, I would like to connect the two, because it would no longer be done for you out of the box. The part of the reason why this is happening, because you and I were discussing, is Samsung not seeing the benefit from it, or is Microsoft not seeing the benefit from it? I don't know. There weren't very many details about if Microsoft paid to have this position put in place in 2019 when they were trying to expand OneDrive, or if Samsung saw this as a natural selection for them to not have all of their eggs in the basket of Google. But what some developers have found out, that there's strings discovered that are hinting at a shift that Samsung is now preparing to make its own cloud service the default destination for photo backups. Part of this is due to the abundance of data centers they will be using to power Samsung or Galaxy AI. So I think they just figured, hey, if we're going to have the capacity to do that, we might as well just put everything in our own basket. What are your thoughts on this? Is this a lose-lose for Microsoft? Is this a win-win for Samsung? Or is this just kind of a meh?
I think it's a meh. It's kind of going to wash out now. When you read that, my first reaction was when we discussed it, Microsoft and Samsung are breaking up. Could this lead to other things, because they've got the phone link relationship and some of the other tight Microsoft integrations in Samsung devices. But I think in this case, you made the point. If they're going to host data centers for their own AI, then why not throw in some storage servers, while we're at it, and, charge people a few bucks a month and put that on the income sheet every quarter. That might work out for them. But at the same time, do we need it? Because I feel like most people, when you purchase a device, unless you're a kid, and then mom and dad are, probably putting the kid on whatever they have or whatever they use. So most people, by the time they're talking photo storage, have adopted things like Google Photos, iPhotos. So is Samsung storage really something that everybody needs? I have my doubts. It may be a meh along the way.
Yeah, I got to say that I'm a little bit biased because I don't use as many Samsung offerings on the phone. I am guilty of being one of those tech journalists that have the privilege to say, hey, you know what? I have enough knowledge to not use per se, maybe the gallery in Samsung Photos. I use Google Photos. I don't use their built-in file explorer. I use Google Files. I don't use there are a lot of things that they offer that I'm like, you know what, I already have another solution for. But there is a large audience, and I don't want to discount them or dismiss them, that use the phone as is. They use the phone. And when I say that, to your point, they may just buy a 1 terabyte storage phone or a 512 and say, that's enough storage for me to store all my photos on this device. I don't even think about putting them in Google Photos. I think about OneDrive. I don't think about, connecting to anything. It's just, I take a photo. I like the photo way it looks. I share it on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and it just stays on the phone. All edits, everything, all versions of it. And it's just filling up on my phone. And when I get a new phone, I just take all that stuff with 1 cord and move it over to the new phone. I never mess with cloud storage or anything of that stuff. And there are a lot of people that are like that, people who don't change the backgrounds on their phones. That was a subtle jab, but there are a large portion of people who just use the phone as is. And maybe, to both Microsoft and Microsoft and Samsung, they were never getting those people to begin with. So I think in the end, it is just kind of a meh. Because again, they're not saying you can't do it. They're just not going to help you do it.
Well, I'm that guy. I use my devices as is. We have talked about that a few times. I'm that guy. Now, I'll say this. I have never used Samsung Photos. I do not store photos on my device regularly because I'm smart enough to realize that these devices break. They have technical issues. They have technical failures. You drop them, they drowned. It happens. They live life. Your case doesn't always save you. They get stolen. And I'm always cloud backing up my content. I will say that I am smart enough to do that. But to your point, I already had an ecosystem in place. So I just went over, signed in, and I don't worry about it. So I'm not sure Samsung is going to need the cloud except for people that are worse than I don't, customize anything. Whatever Samsung gives me, what I use.
Well, then we'll check back after September, ladies and gentlemen, when David's raving about the Samsung cloud and deriding OneDrive along with his Windows rants. Last story we got on the docket is Dell. Dell won a new bid. They won a $9.7 billion DoD contract.
Money.
Exactly. The specifics of this contract are that I think it's a 5-year term, and it's an effort to modernize the Department of Defense's entire Microsoft stack environment. Dell is not supplying its own technology. It's just a reseller and integrators for Microsoft's enterprise stack. The contract consolidates the DoD's Microsoft ecosystem into a single purchasing vehicle for Microsoft 365, cloud subscriptions through Azure services and related cloud licensing, on-premise Microsoft licensing for Windows Server, SQL servers, etc. This replaces a patchwork of separate contracts and renewals and departmental agreements. Again, Microsoft has had and maintains a ton of Department of Defense contracts for various different things, for running Microsoft 365 Office for maybe just the Pentagon, and then doing something else for actual defense in the field. They don't have their HoloLens project that was canceled or spun off into something different. According to the CIO, Kristen Davies, who works at the Department of Defense, and the active Navy CIO, Barry Tanner, the goal obviously is to streamline procurement, reduce redundant licensing, unify cloud productivity tools under one umbrella, simplifying budgeting across branches. The Pentagon estimates that they will save $422 million in annual savings just from doing this consolidation alone. That's more than $2 billion saved over the lifetime of the contract. It's great. Microsoft is a beneficiary of somehow Dell getting this deal. And this is where the news becomes a little bit controversial. beyond just the reporting of Microsoft getting, being the beneficiary of Dell getting the contract. And I wrote in my reporting that Microsoft should be very aware, and they've been very weary of being seen just solely associated with the Trump administration. Now, again, like I said, they've had contracts with the presidency, with the Department of Defense, with all kinds of various portions of the government over various lifespans of presidential administrations or whatnot, both Republican, Democrat, what have you. But Michael Dell seems to be a big fan and a big buddy of Trump. I think it was last year he announced that he would donate personally to the Trump accounts to the tune of, I think it was like $6 billion or something like that to get it started. We don't know if that money has actually surfaced and gone out to actual people, but it does make a great headline. And I say that in light of Dell getting this new contract for $9.7 billion over the next 5 years or so. It's one thing to say I'm going to offer $6 billion in order to get an actual $9 billion contract that actually has money. So Microsoft being associated with this, if another admin comes in that isn't so pro whatever this previous administration did, wants to maybe move to Linux for whatever, for various reasons, Microsoft could see themselves being untangled from this deal because of that. You could come in and you could imagine a future where an investigation is put upon how this contract even became, a thing, and that could be an issue for Microsoft.
Microsoft keeps getting themselves tangled up. It's and I get politics is part of it, and especially right now in the world, politics is a big part of decisions. Who you support, who you don't, who you donate to, who you don't. I understand. I get that. And businesses are jostling around to see what gets the best footing with what may get them a favor, what may keep them out of, the spotlight of, something unfavorable. So, Microsoft, be a little more careful about what you're doing here, because, you keep getting yourself tangled. There was the whole thing with AI and helping, some of the folks overseas. You kind of got yourself tangled in that. You got yourself tangled with the UK and unbundling of Office 365. You got accused of charging people in different areas different prices for, Office 365 for business. Now, come on, Microsoft.
And for anybody that would say that I'm engaging in hyperbole or overreacting, we just want to, let it be known that Dell's role in all of this, Dell's Federal Systems, is a primary contactor for and responsible for managing procurement, handling licensing and logistics. They will serve as the integrator for Microsoft Stack, coordinating deployment and renewals, and they basically act as the Department of Defense's single point of contact. Dell is essentially the front end while Microsoft is the back end. Mind you, they are using this. This isn't like they are just going to be they're providing just a bunch of Dell laptops. They are managing Microsoft's software in regards to what the Department of Defense needs. They are, when the Department of Defense asks for something, specifically Microsoft software, they're going to be asking Dell this. So it seems a bit odd that, yes, Dell won the contract, but Microsoft is what they're using, and that Microsoft isn't the go-between anymore. They're just the software stack. And again, I think it leads a little more credence to how Dell got the deal versus Microsoft even pushing forward. Because again, they already have separate contracts. And I'm sure they love the idea of having separate ones because they can charge different prices. And they can tax those prices differently. It's really better for them to have a bunch of different, desperate things working together for them than to have this one thing where, again, they would potentially lose, $2 billion over the course of this deal from having to license, or not having as many licenses out. So I wonder, how big Microsoft pushed for this deal, whether or not this is just, again, something Michael Dell and the Dell Technologies worked in agreement with, this administration was already friendly with. But enough conspiratorial talk. Let's get into something fun. Let's end the weekend on a happy note. You got free play days, my friend.
Yep, I've got free play days. I keep hearing that you guys enjoy hearing free play days come from us, and I enjoy doing them being a gamer myself, and I know you game as well. So let's get in and talk about these free play days. Let's see what we have. Month of May is ending with a nice little bang here. We have got a little bit for people to choose from May 28th, which was yesterday, until Sunday, May 31st. We've got some things for folks with those Game Pass memberships, your essential all the way up to your ultimate. And we've got a few things for the folks that do not have a Game Pass membership. So let's kind of go over it. We have Gears of War Reloaded for the folks without a Game Pass membership. We have a 5-hour trial of High on Life 2. And a quick reminder, before I get into any of the rest, let me go ahead and throw this in there in a different way. Xbox.com is where you go get these. On your console, go over to your account, go down to your memberships, go down to your Game Pass. You will find these listed there. I checked last week just to make sure that we do not have anything on the dashboard to make it easy, Microsoft, to find these things. So, for the folks that have...
Is that another Microsoft-related rant?
That is another one. Maybe we'll have that one next week. But we might need more time next week on that one. All right, for the folks that have a Game Pass subscription, we have Formula Legends and Dying Light Definitive Edition. Now, the Dying Light Definitive Edition is not on sale. It is a $49.99 title, so when somebody doesn't do that, I go read the reviews. This is a 5-star title, so it might be worth your total $50. Formula Legends is down to $13.99. So you have 4 choices here. One is a trial to jump into this weekend. I have played Gears of War Reloaded. I got that as part of the original release on Game Pass. That's a good one to try. I have not tried Dying Light Definitive Edition. And seeing as it's a 5-star title, I think I'll sit down and try that one this weekend. And, just the name, High on Life 2. I'm high on life. I'm not high on anything else, I promise. Just life. I may sit down and give that one a try as well. So, my friend, I know you're busy. The weather's warm where we both are. We're both a little busy. Do you have time to try any of these this weekend? Or you throw at a party? You didn't invite me if you are. You mowing grass, talking about chargers. What are you doing?
I'll be doing, I will try this High on Life. We're watching the trailer right now for those who are listening. It looks very interesting. My birthday was yesterday.
Well, happy birthday, buddy. You didn't even tell me.
Yeah, when you said throwing a party, I was like, oh. But no, I didn't throw a party. But my wife and daughters will be out of town for an event on Saturday.
So there's his party. There's his party.
There's my party. I'm going to be doing some movie hopping, and then in the evening I will be playing perhaps this High on Life game, which looks like, what is this, first person weird alien shooter kind of thing. So I'll be doing that, and then as usual I'll probably also be doing playing Hades 2 on there, and then I think is it Dead Static or something like that. It's an interesting zombie / post-apocalyptic roguelike game, which again, I've become a fan of those types of games over the last month or two. So I'll be playing games. I'll be hanging out by myself. If people want to hang out with you though, where can they find you? Where can they play a game with you or watch you play a game?
David PAJ 1978 over on the Blue Sky. Jump over there, say hello. Ask me what am I playing. For those that look, I'm generally playing at night on Twitch under David PAJ, and I'm just kind of hanging out this weekend. Right now, I don't have a whole lot of plans. Just kind of hanging out with family and a friend or two for this weekend. My sister's got some things for the weekend that I need to help her with, so I'm kind of doing some of that. But there'll be plenty of time in there for some gaming unless something bad was to happen. So let's hope that doesn't occur. I will be trying this Dead by Daylight, just like yourself here. I'm interested to see what it is. Just watching. I'm kind of watching the video that we're showing here on screen while we're talking. Oh, you're showing Dead Static. Excuse me.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
This is what I'm playing these days. It's
Okay.
on if you have a Game Pass, this is a game you could try out. If you're a fan of State of Decay, and you're waiting for the third installment, this is a good game to kind of hold you over for a little bit. And like I said, it's beyond zombies, they're just monsters, but it's got that same sort of feel. And you rummage around for things and you build safe areas. So that's another game you guys can try. I know it's not free play days, but it technically is free, or it's a part of the Game Pass lineup.
So that's Dead Static. I'm gonna have to
Dead Static Drive.
Yeah, Dead Static Drive. I'm gonna have to try that one too, because watching that video while I was talking there, that looked pretty good.
The artwork is amazing. I'm being drawn in by amazing artwork, and all the devs who work with these artists to create these experiences, thank you very much. You can find me at Happy Hulk, at Blue Sky, Happy Hulk 1 on Threads, if you want to hang out and chat. Other than that, we want you guys to go out and enjoy your weekend. Again, eat some great food, listen to some great music, take a long nap. None of these I take a 20-minute nap. That's not a nap. I want you to take a nap where you wake up and you don't realize what time it is or what day you're in. That's the kind of nap I want for you, my friends.
Oh, those are the best.
Yes, I want you to lose time. I want you to time travel in your nap. If you can't do that, then enjoy time with your family, enjoy time with your friends, enjoy time with your pets. We will see you again next week for episode 99. Thank you for your time. You got anything else to say?
Have a good weekend, everybody. And just a quick reminder, build next week. So be ready for that build coverage on the website and on our other channels as well. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks again.
Bye.